Hello, I'm Myesha. I am the owner of Vegan Munchies. It's a plant-based cuisine, and we are here today with fresh eggs, and we're going to learn how to cook some vegetables and some mushrooms and different kind of ways. Today, I'm going to be making a squash potato blend, and it's got zucchini and bell peppers and onions and all the ingredients you see here. First, we're going to start with chopping our vegetables. So I'll start with zucchini and onion. And then we'll go ahead and get the potatoes on. You can saute them or you can grill them. You can do them in any kind of way, but I'm actually cheating today. So I boil them first, but I don't get them soft enough to where they'll mash like mashed potatoes, but just a little firmness so that the squash and bell peppers and everything can cook together. So we'll start off with rinsing our potatoes. The red ones are the best as far as health wise, so I choose those. You can use whatever your palate decides, but as far as health, these have the most nutritional value. We're going to get our potatoes on. I just filled enough water to just cover the potatoes. I usually use spring water, but it was unavailable at the moment, so we did use faucet water. That's okay if that's all you got. Spring water is going to be your best option, though. That way, your whole meal is full of nutritional value and benefits. Then you're going to do a little sea salt. And we're going to let those cook about roughly about 15 minutes. These are the smaller ones, so they cook faster. Sometimes it takes 10 minutes, just depending on where your heat is. But we're going to let it cook slow, so I'll have time to chop. Got a nice size zucchini here. All right. And most of our vegetables are provided by Fresh RX. So we'll start by chopping up some zucchini. You can chop the size that you prefer. I go smaller because I have younger children and some people are just not too fond of certain vegetables. So the best way to get them to eat them, I learned, is to make them small. But if you like them big in chunks like this, that's okay. It's not going to change the taste or anything. So we'll start by chopping up some zucchini. Just cooks faster too when you cut them smaller. When you start to cut them a little thick, takes a little more time, and then sometimes they slime up on you. So cut them smaller so they can cook quick and still retain their firmness. So I was gonna start off by cutting this, but when I tried to pull it apart, it kind of broke. So we're just gonna use this little piece. Again, you can cut the squash as the zucchini or to your preference. Just depends on how you like it. Squash, this particular squash cooks really quick. The butternut squash, on the other hand, takes a little more time. It's a little firmer like potatoes, so everything will go in the pot at different times and not at the same time, just because it cooks a lot different. So we'll go small with those. And then it's best to just go ahead and separate your veggies. Because like I said, you'll have to put them in at different times. Of course, we wouldn't put like your vegetables in with the potatoes, but we're cheating today. Remember that. So they'll be done and we'll be able to put it all together. But if you're going to saute it all, cook your potatoes and squash first. Then add in your onions, then your bell peppers, your squash, the yellow squash and zucchini and that type of stuff. They tend to cook a lot quicker. So we'll just set those to the side. And then we got our onion. And then there's no particular amount that you have to cut. So I can't really tell you like a cup or a half a cup or anything like that. It's kind of to your preference. I'm an onion girl. I love the way onions taste and they flavor the food. So I tend to overdo it on the onions, which is okay. It's still not going to take away from the taste. So I'll just cut about 2 halves. Size actually doesn't matter on this either, but I like mine a little big. I don't like the onions small. All right, we got our onions. We'll set those to the side. Now let's work on our bell peppers. Each bell pepper provides something nutritional in different ways, so I like to use all colors. We'll start with the yellow. The red gives it a kind of sweet taste. I don't know if I'm the only one, but red bell peppers have always had like a natural sweetness to them. Okay, so cut a piece of the green, piece of the yellow, and a piece of the red. All right. Clean those seeds out, but don't throw them away. Try to store them. Regrow you some bell peppers. We can utilize every piece of this vegetable. I like mine a little thicker and firmer. You can go smaller. I don't know. It's just something about seeing those colorful bell peppers that makes me want to eat stuff. So I keep them at a nice size. But if you're just starting off and bell peppers are not your thing, go small. Smaller than the zucchini. All right. And then we're going to take those and slice those in half. All right, that is all the vegetables we need for this dish besides the big boy, the squash. If you want your cutting to be easier, go smaller. They have smaller ones, or they have one that looks like it has a stout and then the bottom is kind of big. Those are a lot easier to slice. This one you're going to have to use a little muscle with it. So we'll start here. All right, and I usually just cut the butt. Set that to the side. Although you can utilize the butt. I actually have a dish that I do with that as well. This thing is tough. If you're just doing a single dish for yourself, you'll just need one round to cut up. If you are cooking for multiple people, you'll need a few of these. So these I cut about the same size as the onions, or in chunks. They just tend to taste better. Don't go too thin, because it does make them cook quicker, but they will burn quick too if you forget. If you're like me with a lot of kids or a lot of things going on at home, sometimes it happens. So the thicker the better. Gives you a little more wiggle room just in case you forget you got food on. It happens. Looks like our potatoes are done, so we're going to drain those. And let's get that squash on, and then I'll show you what to do with the potatoes after we drain them. The stove is already hot, so we're going to add a little bit of avocado oil. You can't really overdo it. You got to put a lot of vegetables in it, so I usually fill the skillet. Cover the skillet, not fill it, because you don't want too much. We'll let that heat for a bit. And then we're first going to add our squash in. Because like I said, that takes a lot longer to cook. And then as these get done, we'll add in the potatoes, the onions, the vegetables, and everything. So everything keeps its firmness. I don't like slimy vegetables. I don't think nobody does. And I think that's why we were all tainted as kids from eating slimy vegetables. So it does matter about the time that you put them in. If you throw it all in there, you'll get firm squash with slimy vegetables, and it's just not a good taste. We got our grease hot, so now let's go ahead and put in our squash. When you hear the sizzle, that means it's ready. All right, we'll let those cook, and then we can go back to the potatoes. We'll get the potatoes out now. I will say we cheated, so they're done. And all we'll have to do is just add them to the squash once the squash is cooked. So I like mine a decent size, about that size. You just cut up as many as you want, or however many you cooked, depending on who you're cooking for. And they still have a little firmness. So they'll get to cook a little bit more with all the ingredients. That way that flavor gets all in them. So the squash is going to take roughly, I'm going to turn the heat up just a little bit. About 3 to 4 minutes. 5 pushing it. All right, the squash is starting to soften a bit. So I think it's fair to say we can go ahead and add in the potatoes. And then we're going to do the onions for flavor. But I don't mix. I just put the onions on top so that they can kind of release the flavor into it. And since we're going on top and we're going to cover it so that they can smother, we can go ahead and add in our zucchini and squash, because the butternut squash is really soft, so it's gonna cook fairly quick. So we want to make sure these get a little tender and get flavored in. Then we add our lovely bell peppers. And then we're going to turn the heat down just a tad so they can smother a bit, and we're going to cover this. We're going to let those smother just for a tad before we get to mixing. All right, let's check on our squash and veggies. Yeah, that's all doing pretty good. So we can start to mix those. Now, be very gentle and careful because, like I said, I boiled the potatoes, and as you can see, they're starting to fall apart just a little bit because I turned the heat down so everything can kind of cook naturally and blend together. Once it gets to the firmness and the texture that I enjoy, I'll turn the heat back up to give it that crunch and that fried type of smothered potato feel. But for now, we just want it all to cook together. And it's getting there. I see the onions getting a little tender. And then the squash. Look at that beautiful squash. So, since everything is pretty much tender in here and soft, we're going to turn the heat up just a tad bit. And we're going to let those bad boys cook just a little bit more. It looks like our squash potato blend is getting done. It's pretty much done. So we're going to go ahead and add our seasonings. Get that flavor going. So we're going to start off with some red pepper flakes. You can't tell by now, these are my favorite. But they're really healthy. Very nutritional. But don't overdo it, or you're going to burn your palate. And that's never fun. We're going to go with some oregano. Because oregano is just healthy all around and benefits so much. And it's a good taste. So can't really overdo it with the herbs. Now with the salt, ease up, of course. And with the pepper or the spices, something like clove or red pepper, don't overdo it. Thyme is your best friend. It's actually good for inflammation. It helps a lot in detoxing, so you can't overdo it with the thyme. And then it always gives your food a great flavor. So I'm going to do a lot of that thyme. Okay, and then here comes the sea salt. I'm going to mix those up. I did turn the fire up to get a little more crunch on some of the vegetables and the potatoes. So your onions and squash will be kind of soft, but then the potatoes and the firmness is still there in some of your vegetables. I like my smothered potatoes or smothered squash with a little crunch. Let them cook for a few seconds, then flip, and then just get them to the consistency that you would like. And then they'll be done. So they should be ready to flip again. Okay, yeah. There we go. See that beautiful squash? That's the color and the crunch I'm looking for. So now I'm just going to cut that off. And let that simmer down. And that's it for the squash blend.